45 years, zero name changes, new offices, more staff, improved technology to better serve you. Education, services, investments. Think real estate, think Marshall Reddick. Brokerage, property management, private lending, creating financial independence through real estate since 1979.
The time has come. We're going to get this started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Let me make sure that I didn't mute myself because I do that from time to time. No, we're good. Okay. We appreciate everyone being here. We know it's everyone's got a lot going on, and our goal here is to present some really valuable information for you guys and hope that we can help you guys on the path to home ownership. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Marshall Reddick Tenant Homebuyer Program. And this is personally for me, and I know the same for my guest speakers that I'll be introducing shortly, probably our favorite topic with what we do here at Marshall Reddick. We were all renters at one point, and through time found our way into home ownership and got to experience not just the tremendous impact that it makes on your net worth, which it certainly does, but all the other factors that come along with owning a home, from the pride of home ownership to just the feeling of community that you get being a homeowner. I remember when I purchased my first home and just sitting around in my living room looking around like, man, that's my stove and these are my floors and these are my walls. This is my kingdom, right? And it wasn't just awesome that it was my home, but it definitely made me feel like I was home, right? Like I'm part of this community now. I'm not just a guest anymore, if you will. And we understand that a lot of people share those same kind of dreams. And I spoke to most of everybody who's logged in here. We've got some new faces and some familiar faces. Thank you everybody for being here so much. And most of everyone I spoke to tonight shared those same sentiments that they have a goal and a dream of owning a home. And Marshall Reddick's Tenant Homebuyer Program is something just so very special that allows our tenants to really make this dream a reality. Most property managers don't offer anything like this. And our goal is to help you guys on your path towards not just financial freedom, but all the good stuff and the good vibes that come along with it. So let's get started here. Guys, nice to meet you again for some of you. My name is Tyler. Just a little bit about me. I've been in real estate since 2017. I was born and raised in New York. I went to school for financial information analysis and portfolio management. My goal was to go to Wall Street, like most young men in New York, right? I graduated during the time of not just the economic collapse, but an economic collapse inspired by the financial industry, right? And I couldn't get a job to save my life. Ended up coming out into the real estate world, and it's just been so wonderful, right? It's cool because Marshall Reddick does a lot of investment real estate, so I get to use my investing background, it's just been such a blessing and so much fun. I completed the negotiation mastery program at Harvard in 2022. I've personally done over 200 transactions in my time here, and that velocity is speeding up. I think we'll be close to 300 by the time this year is over. I've done real estate personally in 13 states. I have a goal to do it in all 50 by the time I hang up my boots. Alaska has been the hardest one so far. So if anyone knows anyone trying to do some real estate in Alaska, please let me know. I'd love to help them. I have over 200 5-star reviews on, between Zillow and Google and Facebook. And the reason I put that up there is, I'm going to do my best to put my best foot forward here this evening to, relay to you guys that I'm experienced and educated and a really hard worker and enjoyable to work with. But I think it hits different hearing it from my other clients, right? So I would invite everyone on here to check out those reviews, should you so choose. And I was recently featured on the Icons of Real Estate podcast. So let's talk a little bit about Marshall Reddick, right? Most of you on the call know us as your property manager. But we do a lot more than just that, right? So Marshall Reddick actually started as a real estate broker, which we still are today. In any given year, we buy or sell about 800 properties for our clients, right? And then we're also a property manager. Today, we manage just over 3,200 properties, which is how we've come to know everyone here on the call tonight. We're also a private money lender, so we lend out money to real estate professionals who are doing fix and flips, bridges, IO loans, things of that nature. And then we also have a private equity fund where our clients can pool their money together and invest in first lien holder position mortgages, right? And Marshall Reddick is located in very specific markets. You know, we do have agents in all 50 states, but when it comes to, you know, a lot of our real estate business, our property management, we're focused in very specific regions, right? And the idea is we're in regions that are good for real estate investing, places where we can see and forecast continued growth when it comes to appreciation, but also growth when it comes to population, right? A lot of the properties that we manage for clients were at one point their home, right? And you guys may all very well find yourself in that situation in the years to come, right? You may purchase a home and then whether work or life or love or whatever it is takes you in another direction out of that city, you may find an opportunity to turn that piece of real estate into a rental property, right? And so we focus on areas where we know not only do these properties appreciate in value over time, but they have a strong tenant base, right? Because there's two things that eat into your returns as an investor when you have a rental property. That's maintenance and vacancy. And so we want to be in places where we can keep those vacancies low. This is everywhere that you're going to find Marshall Reddick with a physical footprint office. So you can go into any of these cities and walk into the Marshall Reddick office and it will be exactly the same as any of these other cities. You know, again, we do have agents in all 50 states, but this is where you're going to find, you know, not just sales agents, but property managers, leasing agents, our accounting staff, social media staff, private lending staff, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So this is where if anyone's ever in any of these cities and you're interested in those cities, please feel free to walk into the office. We'd love to meet you. And here's just a snapshot of who we are, right? We like to show this because, you know, in the real estate industry, a lot of people, real estate is it's like a hobby or a side gig or a part-time type of thing. You don't find that with Marshall Reddick. Our entire staff is fully focused on real estate. They have backgrounds in real estate. They're very educated and experienced and professional. And we think it makes a really big difference when it comes to, you know, being able to provide the kind of service that we want to provide. And so with that, I'd like to introduce to you guys my two guest speakers tonight. First off, we have Jennifer. Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Forga. I'm so excited to be here because the tenant home buyer program is like my favorite thing in Marshall Reddick. You know that feeling when you walk into a house, like just as a renter and you're like, oh my gosh, this house is perfect. It's so cute. Magnify that, right? When you get your own house. So I've been in real estate about 12 years. I did real estate in Colorado. That 217 leases total in 18 months is pretty accurate. I'm up to about 580 in the time that I've been here. So that's a ton of people that I've gotten into being home buyers, which again, that's what I'm so excited about. In Colorado, I did mainly rent to own properties, lots of, so Colorado, same as San Antonio, is very military. So a lot of VA loans, things like that. One of my favorite things to do when I'm not working is I rehab and rescue and retrain horses. I've been doing that about 20 years. I used to do it actually for a living when I was younger. And I just got a new rehab horse that I'm really excited about. Just rode him for the first time. He's great. Other hobbies, anything outdoors, love bass fishing, hiking. And then I do all of my own home renovation, make a lot of mistakes, learned a lot, and now I have some great tools. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. We're so excited to have you here this evening. And, you know, thank you for taking the time out for our clients. I know they really appreciate it. And we look forward to learning a lot from you this evening. So thank you again so much. And next we have Malika. Malika, same. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and you know, telling our guests a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Malika. I am the boots on the ground here in Clarksville, Tennessee and Oak Grove, Kentucky. I've been licensed over a decade, been with Marshall Reddick that long, by way of maybe third party, but my relationship with them is well over a decade. They call me a local expert because I know the ins and out of Clarksville and Oak Grove, and I dabble a little bit in Nashville and Hopkinsville, Kentucky as well. I'm known as the Queen of Flips. That's what my nickname is. My husband and I have done over 250 flips for Marshall Reddick and other investors. I've done over 400 transactions. I think it's close to 5 now. So like I'm, very hands-on. It's a lot of fun. I love what I do. I love helping clients, renovate their homes and being the project managers over those tasks and everything. And just, helping people find their property, whether if it's a fixer-upper, if it's their dream home, or whatever it is. I enjoy what I do. And, this is my dream job.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Malika. And same to you. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Having such experienced agents from different markets is just such a blessing, and it just makes such a difference here at Marshall Reddick, right? It's interesting. A lot of clients, when they're working with a broker, if the broker's not located in the areas that they're looking to live, they'll often refer them out to, some random person that they don't necessarily know and things of that nature, right? So having, to use your terms, Malika, boots on the ground in the markets that we operate in is just so advantageous for our clients. So thank you guys both for being here again. We really appreciate it. Let's dive in here. Cool. So topics we're going to cover today. So we're going to go over the tenant home buyer addendum, which is something that, everyone on this call assigned when they became tenants with Marshall Reddick, right? We're going to go over, the steps and expectations and how this program works to see if this is something that would work for everybody on the call. We're going to talk a little bit about financing, right? How do we get pre-approved so that we can get the money we need in order to secure a home, right? We'll talk a little bit about investing in house hacking. And then we're going to go over, and this is the best part, examples of this program and how it's worked for hundreds of tenants in Marshall Reddick in the past, right? Well, pretty cool. So here, guys, this is your tenant home buyer addendum. This is what you guys signed when you moved in with us, right? And it talks about everything required in how this program works, right? And basically, on a very high level, the idea here is that, let's say that you guys are interested in possibly owning a home, right? And wanting to get started in that process, and how do I get started and all of that. At any given time, you can give me a call and we'll discuss what it is you guys are trying to accomplish, right? And then we're going to help bring in the team members to figure out how do we accomplish this, right? So we'll have you guys sit down with our lender and we'll go over your numbers, right? Your income, your debt to income, what kind of home and neighborhood you're looking for, so that we can crunch the numbers and say exactly, okay, here's how much money you need to make, or here's how much of a down payment you would need. Here's what the monthly cost would look like in any neighborhood you're looking at, depending on tax rates, HOAs, things of that nature. And should we get to the point where you guys say, okay, this could work for us and we'd like to go buy a home, we're going to take you out and tour the homes that you guys are interested in, and as long as you guys are working with Marshall Reddick through this process, we will let you, out of your lease at any given time, and there's no cost to you guys, right? The way that it works is, once you guys close on your new home, you're going to move into your new home. We're then going to go find a new tenant for your property that you're leasing now. And the commission that the sales agent makes from the purchase on your new home, which is paid for by the seller, they're going to take some of that money and then pay whatever delta in your rent exists, right? So this is a no-cost program to you guys. It's purely focused on helping you guys accomplish the dream of home ownership. And this is not available in most places, so we're really excited that we get to offer this to you guys, right? So how do we know if we're financially ready to become a homeowner? That's the entire point of your pre-approval, right? So when you guys get to this point and you say, okay, Tyler, I want to really look at this and I want to understand, is this an option for me? I'm going to bring in our lender Reed, and you guys are going to have a conversation about your guys' financial situation. He'll gather the appropriate documents needed from you guys. So we're going to look at like your W-2s. We'll look at your pay stubs. We'll run your credit to get an idea of any, outstanding debt and all that kind of stuff. And then once we have all those, we're going to compile it together and we're going to say, okay, here's how much of a home purchase you can make price-wise. And based on that, here's your down payment options, right? Based on your situation. Here's what the monthly costs would look like, so on and so forth. And this is really the most powerful first step, because it gives us, it gives you, I should say, insight into whether or not financially this would make sense for you. And so this is how we decide and we determine, or help you determine is what I should say, are you ready and are you able to purchase a home? So that's step one, guys, right? And so what kind of upfront costs should I expect? And how can I plan for them? So upfront costs when you're purchasing a home are what you call your closing costs, right? So you're going to be seeing things like your home inspection, the appraisal on that home. You'll have some escrow fees. You'll have, possibly some prorated taxes, prorated HOA, that kind of stuff. And then your down payment. It's all very specific based on you and the property that you're looking at. If I went to look at a property and you went to look at the same property, our costs would be different, right? And it's a lot to do with our credit scores, our debt to income ratios, whether or not we are veterans, whether or not we're first-time home buyers, all that kind of stuff. And so it's all very different based on your situation. But that's typically what you can expect is you're going to have a little bit of closing costs and you'll have your down payment. And when we sit down and we're looking through, is this an option for you? We'll be able to forecast all those costs for you up front before you ever sign any sort of agreement or any sort of offer or anything of that nature, right? So there's no real commitment from you guys up until this point, right? We will do all of this math and we'll do all this forecasting for you before we ever get to the point of making offers on homes. So you will know, before we take that leap, what your costs are and if those costs work for you guys, right? Now, I'm going to bring Malik in here to talk a little bit about some financing options, right? Are there any low down payment options? Are there zero down payment options? What kind of options are available to first-time home buyers? Malika does a lot of work with our veterans, and she does a lot of work with first-time home buyers as well. So I wanted her to speak on this just because she is so educated and experienced. So if Malika, if you wouldn't mind walking us through your experience with these down payment options.
Yes, absolutely. So there are a lot of different options. If you're a first-time home buyer, if you're VA, you have one that I don't see on there other than the conventional USDA, FHA. There's also THDA. And THDA is like for Tennessee, the state of Tennessee. And what you can do with that, they have down payment assistance program. So some people might think that, oh, I have to have a lot of money to be a homeowner and buy a home, and that's not true. It's all about connecting with the right agent that's going to put you in contact with the right loan officer, and lender, so that they can tell you what you might qualify for. Now, there are certain, like financial income restrictions, like if you make $250,000, you may not qualify for USDA or THDA. But if you fit the guidelines of the income, they have down payment assistance programs available for you. They also have vendee financing, which falls under the umbrella of conventional. So there's properties out there that, you know, when you would normally have to pay 20, 25, 30% down conventional, you actually only have to pay 5% down. And that'll open up the door for you to get into those properties. So remember that you don't have to have a ton of money to buy a home and have home ownership. You just have to know what type of loan that you might qualify for, because they do have different loans out there. Now, my VA buyers, they buy day and night, no money down. You know, they pay $500, sometimes $1,000 earnest money. And, you know, they pay, of course, you pay for like your home inspection and you pay for your appraisal. You're going to pay for those things. But sometimes with VA, they can roll the appraisal into the loan. It just all depends on the lender. So, you know, so there are options for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Malika. And, you know, just from kind of a high level, guys, you know, your VA loans are as little as 0% down. Your conventional loans are as little as 3% down, and FHA is 3.5%. So, you know, when we're looking at, you know, just for round numbers, like a $300,000 price point, you know, you're generally looking at about $9,000, right? So it's much more affordable, to Malika's point, than most people realize. And it really comes down to hit on your point again, Malika, having the right team, right? Having the right loan officer who's not just experienced and educated, but who's willing to take the time and work with you on putting together a program, right? There's a lot of, for better or worse, loan officers out there who only want to work with high down payment type of scenarios. We here at Marshall Reddick are here to help you with, regardless of what your situation is. We'll do everything in our power to help make it work for you. Malika, thank you so much for touching on that. I appreciate you. And so now we want to talk a little bit about long-term financial advantages that come with home ownership. I wanted to bring Jennifer in here on this. She has worked with just so many clients and many tenant home buyers. And she's gotten to see the transition for our tenants from going from tenant to home buyer, and over the long term, how that's really affected their life. So Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind just, you know, giving us, you know, your high level thoughts on long-term financial advantages that come along with home ownership.
Yes, absolutely. So first and foremost, the money that you're paying in rent will now translate to equity into your own home. And there's so many things you can do with that in the long term. Like many of my clients, after a couple of years, will take out maybe like a home equity loan and buy an investment property or buy a second property, or have the funds there. That it's building generational wealth. So even as a first-time home buyer, most people tend to go with like the simple, the normal, like that we all have. It's like the 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. And who knows, in 5-10 years, your family might grow. You might have your parents or your in-laws having to move in with you, and you would have to either upgrade or buy another home. And all of that money that you're paying in rent is now becoming part of your personal portfolio that you can build wealth generationally with. And that is a huge thing. Also, not necessarily just the financial long-term gains, but owning your own home is a sense of pride. Hey, I don't like the paint color. Oh, I can change it. I don't like my front door. Hey, I can change it. There's so many differences between renting and owning. And literally after 5 years, you are set in that house. Every house I know, for as long as I've been doing real estate, none of them depreciate. They're only going up. They're only going up. And as long as your payments, you're comfortable with your payments, you make your payments every month, you are now building wealth. And that is not the same in renting. You're literally paying somebody else's mortgage when you're renting.
Thank you, Jennifer. And it's so very true. And the same happened to me. You know, I went to school for investing, and I'm an investing nerd, and I invest in a lot of things. I invest in the stock market, I invest in private equity, lots of different stuff. But the biggest return I ever made was buying my very first home. My net worth over, and I owned my first home for 3 years. My net worth over those 3 years, when I graph it out, the velocity at which my net worth grew was a much higher velocity than any other investment I've ever made. When I go back and look at my net worth charted out over my time, since I graduated high school, became an adult, and started trying to survive out here in the real world, nothing has made a bigger impact than when I bought my first home. And that's a very common thing, right? And the first home is the hardest one to get. Once you get your first home, like Jennifer said, you're now making money and building equity while you sleep. And then 5 to 7 years down the line, which is the average home ownership. In the US, on average, people own their home for 7 years. Coming to the end of that 7 years, you're so much farther ahead. And now you've got all this built-in equity that you can use for, maybe I want to get a bigger home, or maybe I want just another home and I'm going to turn this home into a rental, whatever it is. That first piece of property is such a springboard. And I was told this by so many mentors growing up. I was told the same thing, and I always kind of just brushed it off. But then once I got my first home and I could see this happening, my only regret is that I didn't start sooner, right? And this little tidbit at the bottom, with a net worth of a typical homeowner, is about 40x that of a renter. That's based on retirement. Up until a couple years ago, average retirement was 65. Now they're saying it's like 67 and a half. For any of my millennials out there, you guys my age or younger, we're just hoping that we get to retire, at some point. But when the Fed and the IRS and everyone else, all these large financial institutions are analyzing and comparing net worths, when we compare to homeowners versus renters, it's generally about 40 times the difference over, the lifelong investment, right? So it really, really does make such a dramatic impact, and we want everyone on this call to feel that impact, right? Because it's made such a difference in our lives owning real estate. And like I said, we were all renters before we bought our first property, and so it's easy for us to say and see and feel this. And we hope that you guys, get to experience that as well. And that's why we're here tonight, right? So how do I know if home buying is right for me? Right? Should I buy right now, or should I wait? And timing the market is, it seems pretty impossible. As someone who's been in real estate for a long time, I have clients in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you name it, who've been investing in real estate for decades, if not half a century, and they haven't figured out how to time the market yet, right? And it's interesting, when you're in a buyer's market, it's a great time to buy, but maybe not a great time to sell, and vice versa. But when you own property and you're going to sell it, you it kind of washes, right? Because if you're selling in a buyer's market, like maybe you're not getting the best sale on that side, but then if you're then going and buying with that money, well, now as a buyer, you're making it up on that end, right? So when we just look at a general 5-year average here, right? This is kind of what it looks like. And this is assuming, a standard rents of somewhere between, $1,900 and $2,100 a month, right? In this case, it's $1,950. And you can very easily see like where your money's going, right? And so just in 5 years, you can see deltas of, either paying someone else's mortgage to the tune of 123 grand, call it, versus, putting $90,000 into your net worth. And the mortgage payment versus rent payment, while there is a delta, it's not much of a delta, right? Owning real estate is very much like forced savings, but you get to live in it, right? Which is really, really cool. And you get to build memories in it. It's home. So it just makes such a difference. And, having tax benefits is obviously huge. A lot of those tax benefits come when you buy the home, right? So your closing costs, your moving costs, points that you might pay on that mortgage, all that kind of stuff, they're all write-offs, and they're tax advantages. And every year you hold the home, there are continual write-offs that you get to take as a homeowner, right? If you're making big improvements on the home, those are called capital improvements, and those can be tax advantages, right? So there's a lot of different stuff here. I would also, little side note, that I'd highly recommend to everybody here, once you buy a home, it is time to hire a tax consultant, right? At this point, it's worth a couple $100 you're going to spend to have somebody else doing your taxes, because they're going to be able to take advantage of this home ownership for you, and you're going to net out a lot better. So at least for the first year, have a tax consultant so you can see how your tax schedule is affected by real estate and how you can take advantage of those, right? It's super duper important. So how does the tenant home buyer program work, right? We've talked about up until this point why home ownership is awesome, right? And I know everybody on the call here has that desire to be a homeowner. I spoke to a lot of you before this call today, right? And I got to hear your stories and where you're at in life and what you're trying to accomplish, right? But how does this program actually work? So let's dive in here. So let's talk about your responsibility as the tenant, right? Your rent is due with us until the property is deemed rent ready, right? So we're going to come and walk the property, and we're going to make sure, you know, there's no holes in the walls, it's clean, it's got everything it needs for us to start showing that property, right? And at this point, you're in your new home, you've moved out of your rental, and the property is now rent ready. Okay, you are no longer responsible for that rent, right? And again, rent ready is move-in condition. That's not requiring repairs or maintenance. If repairs or maintenance are required, we can help you guys accomplish that, right? And you know, this is all just kind of, you know, dating and stuff of that nature, but the biggest thing for you guys to take away from this is that your home or your rental just has to be move-in ready. That is your biggest responsibility here, right? And again, we can help make that happen for you. And then what's your agent responsibility? What are they doing to help you guys out, right? So we're going to help guide you to make sure that the home is rent ready. Certainly, the process of buying a home takes a little bit, right? Generally, your escrow is going to be 30 days long. And then you're generally going to spend, you know, a month or so searching for the right home, placing offers, getting your offer accepted. And generally, you're going to take a couple weeks to get your pre-approval done, to work with your agent, to start setting up your criteria of what neighborhoods you want to live in, all that kind of stuff. So you guys have plenty of buffer. And during that time, the agent is going to be working with you to make sure that your property is rent ready when it comes time for you to move out. The agents are then going to market the home, prospect for new tenants, and coordinate the new move-ins, right? And we're going to be touring the tenants through these homes, giving them an idea, selling them on why this home is a great home. Many the same experience that you guys had when you moved in with Marshall Reddick, right? We're then going to be helping you guys submit offers on your home purchase and guide you through that process, right? And at some point here, you know, we're going to get you guys into escrow. We're going to help you through that process. We're going to help you with all your inspections, your appraisal, everything that you guys need to get you to the finish line and help you guys get your hands on some keys that are your keys, right? And so this presentation is relatively short because it's a very simple and straightforward and transparent program. Again, the idea is there's no cost to you. Your responsibility is to give me a call, let me know that you're ready to start looking into this. We're going to help you start looking into it. And then when it's time and you guys are ready to pull the trigger, we're going to help make sure that your properties are rent ready. And that's pretty much the gist of the program, right? You move into your new home, we're going to rent out the rental you're in now, and we're going to pay for that delta in rent. No cost to you guys. So to conclude in this, we wanted to go through some real life success stories, right? It's one thing to talk about this program, and we appreciate you guys being here to hear us out, but it's something else to show real life examples of tenants who have attended this very same seminar in the past and then reached out to me and got this process started and ended up with a home of their own. And so I wanted to have our guest speakers here tonight talk about some real life examples and show just a couple of the hundreds of tenants that we've helped make this dream a reality. So Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind, walk us through some real life examples here of some of our awesome tenants that took advantage of this program and are now happy homeowners.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Tara and Robert were actually one of my very first tenant home buyers when I started at Marshall Reddick about 4 years ago. When they leased their property in New Braunfels, typically I always let everybody know at the showing about our tenant home buyer program. So they were very excited. That I think one of the main reasons they rented with us is because they were wanting to buy in less than a year, and most leases are a year. So they were a lot of fun. They really wanted some property on the outskirts of San Antonio. They wanted at least an acre. They wanted to be able to build a small house for their for Tara's dad. And it was really funny because Robert wanted like the really nice, brand new, pristine house, but he had to have outbuildings. But Tara wanted almost a fixer-upper. So after many tours and many places, they kind of settled. I actually suggested this town, Pleasanton, because I lived there, but I knew it would fit them. So we found this home, and so it had pretty much what they both wanted, other than like the pristine house. But of course, Tara won on the house. The most beautiful thing about this is we negotiated the price down about 20,000 off asking. And they took that, so they were in a position where they did have some extra money put away. They didn't have to do the zero down. I have probably 80% of my renters are doing the zero down, which is fantastic. But they took that 20,000 and then they renovated the home. They invited me out there to see it, and it is just amazing. And I go every year for their birthday parties now too, because the home is beautiful, and they were a lot of fun. I mean, I felt like I wasn't touring clients, I was helping out friends. And so they were amazing. And that was a great experience for me, for the tenant home buyer, because I hadn't done it before. And that just set me off on how much I love doing this. And it's because of that. The two would argue like at every house. they would go back and forth, and man, and you can see how happy they are now. So, and the house is so great now, and they had a pool and everything. So that's one. It was about 4 months of searching, and lots of long drives because they wanted to be out in the country, and I loved it. I got to look at all these different great properties. So, but yeah, they were great, and they're super happy. So that's the first example.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What a great example.
Okay, so Michael, a little bit different. Michael is military. He is very A-type personality. He is a very all about numbers, all about like no emotion. I want this, this, and this. Let's get it done. And he's very, very young, and he utilized his VA. He was very specific about wanting to be in Cibolo because he's working now at the Air Force, but as a civilian. He just got engaged, and we didn't look at very many homes because very quickly he would, like the first couple houses we looked at, I'm like, okay, I'm not even putting anything like that on the list. I know what he's looking for. And he was like to the point, want it done. Like, I think it only took 3 weeks for him to find the house. And it was really funny because he's like, well, I'm not really sure about that kitchen. But when he walked in, he's like, oh my gosh, this is great. I negotiated the price down on that one I think about 15,000. It was like the quickest, smoothest transaction we ever did. But that's because he was more of, like I said, the military type A, B, C, D, get it done. So just as pleasurable to work with because, you know, he knew all his numbers. He knew what he wanted. Whereas the first example, they're like, I don't know. And again, so I had so much fun touring him because we could walk in a house in 2 seconds. He's like, no. And it's like, okay, next. Whereas the other ones, you know, they looked at everything. I love it. That's my favorite part, is when you find that house. So these two examples, the reason I brought these, I've done about 20. But these two, the reason I brought these two examples is because of how much joy I had getting them exactly what they wanted. And that's why I do it. You know, they were in a very tiny rental duplex in Seguin. And yeah, it was great to get them into this big, beautiful house. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Those are awesome examples. And it's just, man, it feels so nice to help people make these kind of dreams come true. And you're so awesome, Jennifer. Thank you so much. That's great. And now I want to bring in Malika to give some examples out from her neck of the woods. Malika, again, thank you so much for being here. If you wouldn't mind sharing some examples of some dreams that you helped make come true.
Absolutely. So, as you can see, this is one of my clients who was military, young guy, you know, fresh in the military, relocated here from Texas. I remember the whole process of trying to get him qualified for a rental. His dad was all up in the mix, and finally he was like, "Daddy, I can do this on my own. Let me do this on my own." But he wanted to. He had been doing a lot of research and had, you know, attending seminars about being an investor. So he says to me one day, he calls me and he says, "Miss Malika, what do I need to do to be an investor? And what do I need to do? Like, can I buy a property? You know, can you help me do this with your tenant home buyer program?" And I said, "Well, absolutely, you know." And the great thing about it is, because, you know, when you're using your VA loan and FHA loans, you have to occupy the property for 3 years before you can turn it into a rental or whatever. But he bought a duplex and he lived on one side and he rents out the other side. And he was like, "I got to structure this right so that the rent can cover my mortgage." And we did all of that. So he was, you know, super, super nice. I met the whole family. The wife had just had the baby, you know, so like I'm holding the baby while we're there signing paper, you know, like it is just so much fun to work with people that, like Jennifer said, they start off as a client, they end up as your friend. And you know, you get Christmas cards or you get text messages, Happy New Year, and, you know, things of that nature. And, you know, it's good to see that, you know, hey, I'm working on this and that, so I can possibly buy another property in a couple of years once I can go to the next, you know. So that's Victor. That was, you know, his duplex, and he's doing well. I spoke to him not too long ago, and he's still enjoying being a investor.
Awesome. Thank you, Malika.
So these clients right here are like one of my favorites. Like, I have so many favorites, but these two guys were like definitely at the top of my list. Met them at a gas station, right? Already lit, already having a good time. Like, I don't even remember where I was coming from, but I know I was feeling really nice when I met them, and, you know, ended up giving them a business card and all that good stuff. And so they called me back and was like, "Hey, we're thinking about moving to Clarksville, and we, you know, since you do real estate, can you help us find a property to lease instead of buying right now? Because we want to lease first and kind of fill it out and see if it's where we really want to buy." And I said, "Yeah." So met them like at 7 o'clock at night to show them a rental property. They ended up loving the property, leased the property out, lived there for like a year and a half. And a year and a half into it, they said, "I think we want to move and we want a little quiet. We want to move out, you know, so we can have some land." They wanted a pool, like they wanted a gourmet kitchen, all that good stuff. And so I looked and kept showing them properties. And at that time, the market was really high. So it was hot and you would have to pay 30 and 40 grand over asking to get the property. So we just kept, you know, striking out. Finally found this property. I'm like, "Look, I don't know if you like this. It's 2.5 hours away from Clarksville, but, you know, it's got all the bells and whistles." And they fell in love. And they said, "Yes, yes, this is what we'll live here the rest of our life and bury me in the backyard." So they ended up buying that property, and I talked to them from time to time, and just fun people, and, you know, very glad to help people when they really think of you as the person that changed their life or helped them in such a big way in their life or made such an impact. So that's the great thing about what we do. Like Jennifer said, we enjoy what we do. Tyler enjoys what he does, helping tenants to achieve something that they don't think that they can do because they don't have a whole bunch of money, or maybe they thought that their credit had to be a 900 credit score or 850 credit score, and you're like, no, we can help you right where you're at. That's the great thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Malika. It's just so nice hearing these things, right? It's just so very, very cool. All right, guys, let's wrap it up a little bit here, right? So this is a question we get all the time. Will someone help me understand my financing options step by step? We already touched on that, but the answer is yes, of course. And that's really the first step in this. First step is to give me a call and let me know that you guys are interested in, possibly utilizing this program. But then second step is we're going to step by step hold your hand and walk through the numbers to make sure that it's something that not only works for you, but that you're comfortable with, right? We want to make sure before we spend any of your time going out to seeing homes and all that kind of stuff that the numbers make sense and that you're really, really excited with it, right? And what common mistakes do first-time buyers make and how can I avoid them? I think we'll all touch a little bit, and I'll go first. I think the biggest mistake I see is when people are in the process of looking for a home to buy and then they go buy a car, or they go and buy some appliances, or just buy a new watch, something expensive, right? Something where you are taking out a loan. When you are getting pre-approved for your loan, debt to income is the biggest ratio that the lenders look at, right? How much income do you make versus how much debt do you have outstanding? And there's a certain ratio that you have to fall within in order to qualify for a home loan. And so that's the biggest mistake I've seen. I've seen it a couple times now where people are just about to get a home and they go and get a car. And it unfortunately puts their debt to income ratios out of whack, and now they can't qualify for a home anymore. So, from my point of view, I would say, if that's on the docket, try to save the new car for after you purchase the home, right? That's my biggest mistake I see. Jennifer, from your angle, what are some mistakes that you see during the first time home buying process that, kind of puts a dent in it, and how can you avoid them?
So mine's a little bit different. My main thing that I see a lot of mistakes for first-time home buyers is they want to get to the top. I'm pre-approved for $450. I want to go look at $470,000 houses, and they want to max out their budget, and that is a big mistake. I think if it's the house and the perfect house, sure, but let's not start there. Let's try to save you money. Especially if it's your first time, you don't know the unexpected costs. Your insurance could go up in a year. Your taxes can go up. So your payment's going to go up. So you have to keep all these things in mind. The second thing that I find, and I say it to everybody that I'm showing houses to, please don't get emotionally attached. If there's a house you absolutely love and the inspection comes back with something really bad, I don't know how many times I hear my clients say, okay, but can we negotiate that repair? When no, let's look. Let's look for something better. So don't get emotionally attached. The right one will happen. And please don't go out and buy a bunch of new furniture before closing either. That's a huge thing. I literally just had one of my tenants closing on Friday. Oh, we're going to go get new furniture for the house. I'm like, how about you wait a year? You don't need brand new furniture for the house. So yeah, just understand that there could be some hidden costs in a house. Again, taxes, insurance, you may have a repair. Yes, we'll get a home warranty on your appliances, but maybe, in a year and a half when your warranty's up, your refrigerator stops. Just know that there's those things and don't go crazy. That's the main thing.
That's awesome advice, Jennifer. Thank you. And Malika, anything that you run into out there in Tennessee?
Just don't touch your credit. So I understand that when you are buying a new home, you want, new furniture and everything like that. But when you go and apply for credit cards and you still got to go through final underwriting, like you can blow it all out the water, because now you have tried to get a credit card and they ran your credit 5 times, and every time they're running your credit, it's a hard pull, it's taking a point away, and now your score is not what it was 3 weeks ago because you applied for 5 credit cards. So just don't apply for no credit card. Don't even touch your credit. Just wait until after you got your keys and you sign everything, then you can go and apply for what you want.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I've seen it too many times, unfortunately. And that's all great advice, guys. Thank you so much. In closing, guys, we just want you to know that we have tons of educational videos and articles online on marshallreddick.com. These were all written by us. Nothing's copy and pasted, no chat GPT here. This is all documentation that we have spent years and years writing for you guys on all sorts of different topics for first-time home buyers and first-time homeowners. So we just want you guys to know that all of that exists and is absolutely no cost. And in closing, I hope to hear from everybody who was here tonight. We appreciate your time. And we really, we hope that in future presentations on this topic, that we get to throw some of you guys into our real world examples of tenants who came to this seminar and, really made it come true, right? So if anyone here has any questions, wants to dive into this a little bit more, wants to have questions about their finances and what kind of house they can afford and what the monthly payment would look like, all of that, here's my direct contact information. You can call me, text me, email me. You can FaceTime me if you want, whatever works for you guys. Jennifer and Malika, thank you so much for being here this evening. I appreciate you both, and I know our clients do as well. I hope everybody has just an awesome week, and I look forward to talking to everybody soon. Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much again. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.